After 1/4 of operation of Activision Blizzard, Microsoft laid off 1,900 employees. That's 9% of the entire gaming division. Microsoft, you were the chosen one. You were sent to destroy Bobby Kotick, not join him.
You were the chosen one. I hate you.
Reeling from the brutality, picking up the pieces, we're left to wonder if this is the direction that's going to lead us to a new glorious age of Blizzard that we were promised. Or are those dreams being cut down by cold-hearted corporate efficiency? Or just maybe, this might be what it looks like when an adult steps into the room. You see, Bobby Boy ran the business with politics and manipulation. There's a lot of bloat, like intentionally baked into the system. The corruption bred more corruption. These layoffs were cold and inhumanely done, but when we look at the long track of the management of Blizzard, I'm not so sure how this decision is going to fall. Probably for the better. And listen, I know that's not a perspective anybody wants to hear, especially if you're a dev. What's wrong? Don't you guys have jobs?
If you know how I feel, why would you say that?
Let's assess the collateral damage here. The areas that were hit the hardest seem to be animators, devs surrounding the PvE content for Overwatch 2, as well as utterly gutting the esports scene. To be clear, I understand it's tragic to lose your livelihood. My heart goes out to the humans affected by the downscaling, but from the business point of view, should we be surprised by any of these departments that they've selected? Or was the writing on the wall? Overwatch 2 led us to believe the PvE was always coming as promised until, oops, it's not at all actually like that, and they tried to salvage and rush out some skimpy piece of PvE story mode where not only was the gameplay abysmal, but was there even any story in it? Do you even remember the plot of Overwatch 2? I'll tell you, Ramatra's the big bad guy. He's coming eventually. That's the story of Overwatch 2 so far. We're over a year into the sequel, guys, and somehow it's less story than Overwatch 1, which didn't even have a story mode to begin with. Now, yes, Overwatch 2 did a ton to add voice interactions in-game. The pre-lobby banter is cute, but we still somehow, so many years later into this, don't have plot or character progression. Think about this for a second. Overwatch 1 had objectively more storytelling, and it was a game that was purely about PvP, and was critically panned for having a vague nothing of a plot. But they added to the world building, at least, of the surrounding stories and narratives through the animated shorts, the books that they released, blog posts, hero teasers, things like that. All of that is much weaker in Overwatch 2, or just non-existent, basically. Losing jobs sucks, but Microsoft distancing themselves from that massive management failure is gonna maybe pan out to look better for their management structure in the long term. And to be clear, I wouldn't put any blame on any individual employee anyway. A lot of them signed on to the project after the big Jeff Kaplan exodus, or in and around that big switch up when the project kept moving its scope and plans and ambitions. But when you have that kind of management of something where it goes from pipe dream to pipe dream, we can kind of expect these kind of results. Another thing that's important here, terminology, which always makes everyone feel better when their livelihoods are being destroyed, right?
It's a total fabrication.
There's no better correct than technically correct. But for the record, there's a big difference between being fired and laid off. Being fired means you personally suck at your job and we're going to get someone else, possibly cheaper, to replace you to do the very same thing. Laid off means that your job no longer exists at this company. We don't do that thing anymore. So you're welcome to apply for a different position, perhaps. We would have you back, possibly, but we don't even do the thing you used to do anymore. At least don't even come to me talking about career instability. My YouTube career has died and revived itself more times than Blizzard at this point.
He just won't die.
What I think is that maybe Microsoft is giving Blizzard its medicine. Sometimes you can be too close to a problem and an outside perspective can help get things on the right track. To me, what I want to make sure Blizzard does is keep a high quality standard and lean towards what they're good at. Does this decision help that? I think time will tell. Though I'll admit, it's still hard to see the moves they've made in the esports side of our game. Right after announcing the new open format, almost all of the esports personnel on staff were let go, including big names like Mr. X, who wasn't just a caster, but also worked on the very format which will now replace his position. Yikes. Zoe as well, gone. How do you do that one? Zoe has the charisma and positive energy aura of an actual Overwatch hero in real life. If Tracer was a real person, she would cosplay as Zoe. But even in this case, they don't have the league to work on anymore. So you can see how that job sort of evaporated, as that wasn't ever going to continue. Hey, but at least we got that new open format that has no downsides whatsoever.
Up about, but they want the money from the evil tyrannical regime that would directly hurt the people they claim to be champions of.
Great, here comes Richard Lewis, always raining on our parade with facts. Okay, so admittedly, years ago, I played Face It and loved it. It's a premium third-party matchmaking service that will give you a more hardcore experience than you will inside your favorite game. I wanted it for Overwatch for years. Hadn't been following recently, there's been a new update. I hadn't been made aware that 2 years ago, Face It, the company, got acquired by Savvy Games Group, which is a holding company owned by Saudi Arabia's Public Investment Fund, which is just one more step in Saudi Arabia's march towards acquiring the entire esports landscape, it seems. That's a problem because our community is supposed to be inclusive to all types of people, no matter their orientation, identity, or really anything that makes you different as far as I'm concerned. Blizzard was supposed to be all about inclusivity, right? And maybe basic human rights? I think we all know the sheen on the artificial reputation Blizzard once had has lost its luster after years of scandals and lawsuits, so we don't really expect them to even fake the funk anymore. Our expectations are seemingly so low that this doesn't even seem to be triggering alarm bells for the community. Blizzard's reputation is so tarnished that we don't even get mad anymore, I guess. We just expect them to get into bed with retrograde regimes. This isn't getting big headlines now, except by the esports old heads that always see these things coming years in advance, but this decision seeds ground in a way that makes the Saudi takeover of our space seem inevitable. This may not get them a PR hit now, but in a few years' time, I think we'll look back at this moment where we thankfully got Bobby Kotick out of the driver's seat of the esport, but may have given it to an even worse group. Okay, last bit of news for the video. Blizzard also has a new president. Mike Ybarra also got the boot in the great shakeup. And now we've got our new president of Blizzard, Joanna Faries. Wait a minute. Nintendo NA has a president named Bowser. The company that owns World of Warcraft has a president named Faries. This means that Ubisoft now needs a new president named Fast Travel. Joanna Faries previously worked for the NFL, then Call of Duty, and she made a public statement to calm the concerns of fans, stating that she knew that Call of Duty and Blizzard games are very different, and more or less promised that she wouldn't turn Blizzard games into Call of Duty. That was Bobby Kotick's job. Monte Cristo has a long tenure as a shoutcaster and esport consultant in a variety of games, did state on a recent Four Horsemen podcast that he has only heard good things about Joanna Faries, which is a pretty strong vouch as far as I'm concerned because these guys are always criticizing everything. Monty doesn't speak lightly, usually. But of course, the jury's out on what tenure the new president will have. To be honest, I'm not even sure I can tell the impact of the tenure of the last president quite yet. But that was a very different era where everything ran through Bobby. We discussed this in a previous video, optimistic about Blizzard, of course. And overall, I'd say I still am. It's never nice to hear a phrase like you gotta break a few eggs to make an omelet when you're the egg. Trust me, I don't want my little egg cracked either. But so far, none of this has changed my feeling on the direction of Blizzard long term at all. If anything, I think this is a necessary change under new management. It's sad to know that they axed the survival game, but what I want to check in on is like in a year's time, once Microsoft has truly formed Activision Blizzard in its image, do we see a different result? That's about how long it's going to take, I think, for a tangible impact of all these decisions to cascade on top of one another. And then we'll actually know. Did they overkill and get rid of a lot of talented developers that were crucial to projects succeeding? Or did they kind of trim the company to be more focused, lean, and mean than it was before? Because I always got the impression Bobby was kind of okay with a little excess wiggle room in the bloat department, because he kind of ran Activision Blizzard like a ruthless fat king. And so the job structures and the bloat kind of mirrored that personality he had. It was strange because it was always a bit unhinged and dysfunctional, almost on purpose. I think the way that Blizzard can make their rebound is to focus on what they do best, and I hope Microsoft is leading them in that direction. Guys, if you enjoyed this video, please be sure to leave it a like, and don't forget to hit subscribe and click the bell icon to actually get notified when our videos come out. That's been it for me. I've been Frito for your Overwatch. I'll see you guys next time.